Hey everyone, welcome to the Bible Belt Bros podcast. Today is a vacation / New Year's / Andrew's gone with my real bro instead of friend guy. Anyways, welcome on into the Bible Belt Bros podcast, Matthew.
Yo, yo, yo. Representing H-Town.
The last time you were on the podcast, some of the responses we had was, hey, actual facts and research. So good luck on your, backing that up. I think last time we talked about Adam and Eve, and people were like, what? Or
it was
science,
awesome.
Science and the Bible and that kind of stuff.
Well,
so
always glad to throw down facts.
Quick note, last time on the podcast, we introduced ourselves as Rocket League bronze level. I would like to report that we have made it to gold.
Boom.
Which is not the top, surprisingly. There's other levels besides gold. But we're at the gold. We got it. We're getting better. Fantastic.
It was a fantastic moment, and things were broken in celebration.
Yes. So in celebration, which was not a celebration of us actually getting to gold, it was a goal that ended up being blocked, so it didn't even count anyway. Matthew broke a lamp at this bed and breakfast, and hopefully they don't listen to this podcast. Otherwise, we are in trouble.
The super glue job is going to be awesome.
Yes. You got super glue. You're the scientist. You can figure it out.
That's right.
If I try to do it, it ain't.
No, it's going to be fantastic.
I suggested breaking other pieces off the lamp to even it out. I think
that entered my mind as an option when I saw how it broke.
That would have been my number one option if I did it. So, just saying, if you want my idea, it's cool. Anyway, we're here on vacation, celebrating the new year.
Oh, yeah.
Family style, hiking, yada, yada, yada.
Freezing, fires, games.
Some people go away from the cold. We went into the cold.
Into the vortex.
Yeah, so when I say cold, it's not even, it's not above freezing.
For me, it's a polar vortex.
Yeah, Houston weather. Yeah,
I'm sure this winter storm has a name. I like how the Weather Channel just started naming winter storms. Like, we name hurricanes. We want more people to watch the Weather Channel, so we're going to give winter storms names.
What has really worked with the hurricanes is when we name them.
Even though no one cares at all.
Yeah, you'd think there's enough winter storms that would just all blend together, but I guess not.
You would think so.
So I brought you here. Well, I didn't bring you here.
We came here.
Came here together. I brought you to this podcasting setup because I have been getting confused with the vacation scheduling of what day it is. And I went and visited my grandparents on Christmas, I believe, and they don't know what day it is. They're quarantined. They can't go anywhere.
They have no idea.
Grandma follows a calendar every day. They don't know how to use technology very well. I found out they thought Alexa was hacking them, so that could be a thing. But it's just I figured I'm getting older and becoming like my grandparents, and I'm gonna have to start carrying a calendar to even know.
You don't have
what
one on your
day
phone?
it is.
Do you use a calendar on your phone?
Well, here's the thing. My technology on my phone is getting a little new for me, and it's just harder to check, I guess. I don't know. I just remember thinking, oh, tomorrow I could do this, but it wasn't Saturday.
I've never been a calendar person. I've always been if it's important enough, I'll remember it. Mm-hmm. If it's not important enough and I don't remember it, it probably won't be that big of a deal. But now with meetings and being a manager of things, I have to use my Outlook calendar to schedule things.
That's the worst.
So it's made me be more calendar-centric with work anyway. But now I find myself putting my personal things on my work calendar, like doctor's appointments and things. Uh-oh. And it's not the worst because then I can set an alert a day before and I won't forget it.
Well, look at you, smarty pants.
And I got to say, when kids entered my world, the number of things on my mind every day, quintupled. And I started forgetting a lot more things. And it wasn't for lack of sleep. I think it's just too many things on my mind. So it's actually been good to get to a calendar routine of sorts.
I'm not in a routine yet. I'm in this. Today is, according to my phone, Thursday.
Oh, yeah. Christmas break. I mean, who knows what day it is. I mean,
it is New Year's.
It's New Year's Eve. We do know that.
Recording this, so I don't know. I just feel like I'm getting older. I don't know how to. I think technology is starting to get away from me a little bit, and I'm not paying attention to things. And I'm just sooner or later, I'm just not gonna know. Like I was at my grandparents' house, and one of the things they talked about was how they look forward to certain days. Like Friday night is a great music night, I think, on one of their favorite channels.
I gotcha.
And Saturday's the best movie day for the Christmas movies on TV. And I'm just thinking in my mind, like, you can literally watch those whenever you want. We live in a world today where you want that station, it's probably broadcasted.
Yeah, but that mindset is definitely there with the older generation of like,
so
Leave It to Beaver was on this day, and the nightly news is on at 6:00 every night. And
that's how they kept a routine.
Johnny Carson is on at this time and not on the weekends.
Yeah.
And, people are built for routines.
So I just hope that I get smarter and don't lose that routine thing because, man, I hope I grow with the times. 'Cause I'm sure in, 50 years from now, things are going to be even easier if I take advantage of it, especially at that age. If you think about it at that age, some of the things that technology-wise that could benefit them, but them learning how to use it is just as hard as them not using it and doing
I mean, people are creatures of habit for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, so that came to my mind as I visited my grandparents, and then I blank out on what day it is before our trip, like figuring out like what to do and all this stuff. And I just thought, that is something that's easy for anybody to do, not necessarily on forgetting the calendar, but just getting in routines and getting mundane with tasks. And, you have your work routine, you work 5 days a week and you have 2 days off. And then that's like everybody looks forward to Saturday, because that's their day off, and you see the memes like Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, you just see those. And that's kind of how it is. Everybody's excited when it's Thursday because that means tomorrow's Friday, You just get in these routines. And at church, like you look in the Bible, Israelites were always in those. And some
Rituals.
some of their things was they wanted to get into different rituals or different routines that the world was doing, instead of doing what God was doing. And so I find the question is like, how does the church not fall into what typically is a Sunday morning routine?
I think with with many things in life, it's important to realize that moderation is key, right? Like one bag of M&Ms is great, but 20 bags of M&Ms is not so great.
Oh, I was going to say even better.
If you take the recommended dose of Tylenol, you're good. If you quadruple it, your liver's dead. Having moderation in many areas of life is really good. And I think rituals and routines definitely falls in that category because I think our Creator knew that people are and we're going to be creatures of habit to certain degrees, and habits can be really healthy because habits and rituals can just help you stay sane. They can help you remember what is important and what's not important, right? I mean, brushing my teeth, that's a not a religious ritual, but it's a ritual, right? The same amount of time, same time every day. I do it all the time. Some people have the same breakfast every day. And if it's a healthy breakfast, it's a pretty awesome routine to be in. I think from a religious sense, I mean, you can take routines and rituals to the extreme, and you see that in the Old Testament where, a lot of Jesus's retorts to the Pharisees were these little arguments they had about like Jesus or his followers breaking some ritual, right? Like healing on the Sabbath or things like that. And
can't think of any.
Yeah, like healing on the Sabbath. What other rituals did they break? I know there was more.
There was a lot.
But there was a lot of healing going on, and it's almost like Jesus did it on the Sabbath to prove a point. Like, you guys are following these rituals too much. You're placing too much emphasis on the rituals. But on the other hand, I think there's some things to suggest that rituals are not just something to follow from a religious standpoint. They actually have the ability to teach themselves. Doing a ritual can actually teach you something about God or about the nature of God. There's a guy, Drew Johnson, who's written a couple books about this. I think he's a theology professor in New York. And one of his books is called Human Rights, Rites. and another one is called, a lot more heady title, Knowledge by Ritual, a biblical prolegomena to sacramental theology. And even I don't know if I pronounced that word right, but he argues that rituals are really important, and there's some scriptural basis for rituals themselves actually teaching something about the nature of God. And just one example in Exodus 31, the Lord is talking to Moses about the Sabbath, and he says, "Say to the Israelites, you must observe my Sabbaths. This will be a sign between me and you for the generations to come, so you may know that I am the Lord who makes you holy." So, like, part of the purpose of that ritual was to teach people about God in some way. Mm-hmm. And so I think it would be good for everyone to examine what rituals you have in your life, right? And are they useful? Where did they come from? What is the purpose?
Well, especially in the Old Testament, our house church is going through the book of Exodus right now, which seems like it seems like we've been going through it for 3 years. We actually probably have, but it's brutal. But one of the things in there is everything ritualistic. The clothes have to be a certain way, the color has to be a certain way,
Right.
The beams have to be a certain height, and those were all there were reasons behind why those things were the way that they were.
Yeah.
And it seems like God was, like you're saying, like he was very into the rituals, the reminders,
And in some of those cases, some of those rituals were there to keep the Israelites safe from things they didn't even know about, right? I mean, you have the ritual washings after, contact with bodily fluids
mm-hmm.
and that kind of stuff, and they didn't know what germ theory was. I mean, nobody did until the 1900s.
Right.
But and yet you have these Israelites who are keeping themselves clean after they've touched, people with leprosy. They had to be quarantined for a week,
mm-hmm.
or blood and human blood or whatever, feces, those things. There was these commandments to clean themselves and wash themselves a certain number of times, or with a certain kind of water, or whatever.
Sing the birthday song.
Yeah. And those rituals were there to protect them. And they probably furthered the Israelite people in terms of I don't know. I don't think anybody kept death rate figures back then, or average age back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I bet they lived longer than most of the other pagan nations because of these practices they had that kept them safe from disease and that kind of stuff. And those were rituals that were there to protect. And I think there's, we taught our kids the birthday thing this year. I used to not care at all about how long they washed their hands. And then COVID, it's okay, this is your ritual. And they do it now. So
right.
Almost subconsciously.
Right.
Whenever they're doing that. And that's a ritual that they may not necessarily know why they do it, but it's keeping them safe.
And then fast forward to now, you have some Catholics who tend to focus more on the rituals, and then you have my church who is
mm-hmm.
if it's a ritual, we are not doing it. No.
Well, there was this movement, right? I mean, I think at least my church, a Church of Christ, by its history, came from the Restoration movement, not the Reformation movement, the Restoration movement,
mm-hmm.
which is a split off in the 1800s from a bunch of other denominations. And that was exactly their mindset. They're like, if it's not written in the New Testament to do it, we're not doing it. And that's where the no instruments thing came from, right?
Right.
There's nowhere in there that says to use instruments to worship God in the New Testament. So the church didn't do it. We're not going to do it. And so there was this giant swing away from rituals, mm-hmm. except the Lord's Supper. We kept that, right?
Because Jesus did it
when
he came back.
And it showed it was important.
Yeah.
And that's a really important ritual. But on the other hand,
think about it, all the things that we are not written about Jesus, and his lifestyle. Man. There could have been all those rituals.
He was a practicing Israelite, right? A Jew.
Right.
So he probably did a lot of, especially growing up before he reached that age of hey parents, I'm Jesus. He was doing everything. But like you said, you can take these things to an extreme, and I don't know if the right word is abuse them, mm-hmm. but place way too much value on them, or remove the reverence or the purpose from them. I had a friend in college, I remember, who he would miss church on Sunday morning, and then on Sunday night at our church they would offer the Lord's Supper in case anybody missed it. And it was he had to go to a separate room and take it,
mm-hmm.
and so he would show up at 10 minutes before the end of Sunday night service, so that he could take the Lord's Supper and make sure that he had it on that Sunday.
Gotcha.
And I was like, I don't think that's the spirit of it.
Right.
I mean, I'm
You're
glad.
not, like pulling one over on the
Right. I'm glad it's important to you, but I don't really think that's like the purpose of, the Lord. And if you have a silent 10 moments of, prayer and reflection on your week during that time, then great. But I don't think that's the idea that if you miss the Lord's Supper on Sunday and you get in a car wreck on Monday, that you're toast.
Right. I used to always grow up worried about that. What if I say a cuss word when somebody pulls in front of me and I crash and die?
Yeah.
Like, it's that kind of mindset.
Or and we have a ritual baptism, right? I mean, baptism is a great ritual and ceremony and basically pledge of allegiance to God. And even with at least my kids, we've had the conversation of like, well, what if I don't get baptized and I die? Or I'm like, well, look at the guys in Romans, the centurion, right? Mm-hmm. Paul basically said, Romans, the centurion and his family, because of your faith, you have the Holy Spirit now. They didn't get baptized, so it's not like 100% by the book.
The thief on the cross didn't get baptized.
Right.
Either.
And there's all sorts of examples like that. And some people take that ritual too far. We had a guest preacher for a while, and he told a story about a lady in what was called the Boston movement, which is a very legalistic movement in I think the 80s or 90s. And this lady came to him, he was a minister, and said, does she want to be baptized? And he was like, okay, that's cool, great. And she's like, I really want to get it right this time. And he said, well, ma'am, how many times have you been baptized? She said, 21.
Oh my God. She just like bad.
So she had this thing that like every time she messed up or whatever, that she had to get rebaptized again. And that was, to me, an example of taking a ritual that's a beautiful thing and a teaching thing and taking it way too far.
Like baptism was a New Year's resolution.
Sense. Or it was a salvation by work. I mean, right? Like you're literally saved by going under the water and coming back out.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Wrong. And so for me, our church we do the Lord's Supper and stuff like that, and we do baptism, if that counts. But
You're legit. You're good.
We're legit. What I can fall into at our church is just doing the hour service thing and getting out of there,
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, is that even the point? Like, why am I here?
Like the order of worship being the same every time, that kind of like the, 2 songs of prayer, 2 more songs, a sermon, Lord's Supper, closing song, closing prayer, done.
Okay, you sing a lot of songs because we're like 3 songs.
That's because your songs are like 15 minutes long, dude.
Yeah. I say that from the band aspect where I do enjoy the music more, and so I always get tilted when
these newfangled Christian songs are too long. They just repeat the same verse over and over again.
We're gonna play a game today, so we're gonna cut out a song.
Oh,
like, well, why can't you just not speak for 5 extra minutes? Like, come on, bro. But that's just how.
Well, that's. I mean, from a routine standpoint, we see ourselves getting, I think, quote, caught in the routine, and maybe our worship's not as sincere or something because it's always the same. But then I look at my kids and I'm like, they're building this routine and this ritual as part of their lives. And if they don't do it, something feels off to them. And I'm like, well, that's really cool because that's the feeling I want them to have when they miss out on a ritual that's done every week.
Right.
And I want them to see me taking the Lord's Supper every week. I want them to see their peers getting baptized and participating in that ritual. And even the repetitive songs, like, some people are like, I hate these new songs that repeat over and over again. But then the kids love them. They're able to actually catch on to them and sing them and memorize them really fast.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of benefit to repeating things over and over again, especially if they have a deeper meaning behind them.
Mm-hmm. I remember that battle. I grew up in a pretty strict Baptist church, and I remember the battle of, what do they call them, choruses?
Yeah.
And so singing choruses, and they're like, they just repeat over and over again. And then my youth pastor was like, well, let's look at a couple of these hymns that we're singing. There's power in the blood, wonderful power in the blood, whatever. And it's like, they repeat all the time. Like, that's not the problem.
Right. That's right.
And repeating helps you remember and those kind of things. It's interesting. But I remember those battles.
Yeah. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I think we learn by doing, right? I mean, there's a lot of educational teaching theory based on learning by doing, right? The teacher gets up on the board and teaches how to do long division. Almost, I mean, there's the occasional, super genius whiz kid in class who's like, I got it. But everybody goes home and is like, I don't get it, or they mess up their first quiz, or they just don't get it right off the bat. And then you give them 100 division problems and you walk them through the process 3 or 4 times, and then they do the process a bunch of times, and then 2 weeks later they're like long division champs.
Well, they call that like it takes a certain amount of time to develop a habit.
Yeah.
To make, working out, for instance, like it's a few weeks.
It must be a really long time for that one.
Yeah, I've never experienced it. I obviously could use that habit.
But we learn by doing.
2021's my year.
That's right.
I just jinxed it.
Man.
Oh no.
Yeah. We learn by doing, and if we reflect on the source of what our rituals are, then I think it's fine to learn by doing.
So what are some things that we could do to help us go into a Sunday morning and not be a zombie to the ritual?
Coffee.
Coffee.
It's a ritual, right?
That's true. Waking up, not just rolling out of bed and getting to church, but actually
yeah.
being ready.
I've heard some people say like having a solid worship experience on Sunday morning starts on Saturday night. Ooh. I mean, adding a ritual like, not just using Saturday night to stay up late and play video games till 4 a.m. or whatever.
Excuse me, that's Friday nights.
Right. So part of your Sunday morning ritual starts on Saturday night. I don't know. One thing I struggle with on the music side is focusing too much on the actual music, like the notes, the harmonies.
I think I was going to say instrumentalist, as a musician, that
instrumentalist.
I get that, because I struggle with looking for the band mistakes and making eye contact with the
quality
guy
of the sound mixing.
Yeah.
Paying attention. I can't hear the bass right there. I can't hear the piano. My wife's playing piano.
This
I can't
mix
hear
is
her.
Terrible.
Right. And then next thing you know, that 3 songs are gone, and I haven't really thought about what I was singing at all.
And then you have those other people that like talkie. They're walking in during the song, and they get to the front row, and they just put their hand straight up, and I'm like, what?
They're straight in.
They're straight all in. I guess I don't get that either. But I guess it's might as well do it. Get that's one way to get started, is just to jump straight into it.
That's a ritual, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if putting your hand up reminds you of who God is and who you are,
and that it's time to
worship.
I mean,
that act of reaching towards something is pretty meaningful, I think.
I'll stop judging them then.
So, okay. I mean, if they need a warm-up period where they have to do some stretches first, then you can let them know, and that can be part of the song service.
You see people in the lobby doing yoga, like getting ready, stretching.
I got to hold my hands up for all these 3 straight really long songs. So
I can't even hold my hands up for 2 choruses.
Right. I think taking sermon notes is something people can do to kind of stay focused. I mean, people tend to zone out during sermons, I think. Start wandering.
I struggle with that, because the longer I've been in the church, it feels like I've heard every sermon. I just do a terrible job at practicing what's being preached, which is why I'm hearing the sermon for the 40th time. But I struggle with that. It's like, oh, this is this sermon. This is the guard your heart sermon, or whatever it is.
Right. Fire and brimstone.
I've been in there. I've been in ministry long enough, and I've been going to church long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's recycled,
Yeah.
And in youth ministry, you could recycle sermons and stuff, and it was fine, because I think that was one of the strategies that we did. Is we had every topic we wanted to cover, and then after about 4 or 5 years, you have a completely new set of kids that have come in, and you can almost start recycling sermons at that point.
Oh yeah,
and
on the youth side.
Yeah, on the youth side.
For
on the
sure.
adult side, you're like, we're getting that sermon again. That's how I feel sometimes. Like, I heard this one already.
Oh yeah, and it's got to be really hard to be a preaching minister.
I sometimes joke with my pastor, because he was my youth pastor, and I'd be like, "Hey, that's your best of your meism sermon that you just did." And he's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I was almost quoting it from the front row."
Man, that's got to be hard to be a minister and have to come up with original material every week.
Especially because you shouldn't have to, in a sense, because
the
Bible isn't saying anything differently now than it is. And so we as people, we just need to hear it eloquently.
eloquently. That works.
We need to hear it with some storytelling ability.
Yeah.
That's where
a
it's
new
like,
angle. I mean, people like illustrations. People like angles. So hearing a fresh take on something can really have a light bulb go off in somebody's mind,
right,
where somebody else might be like, I've heard this before. So
right, yeah. And so I mean, it would be hard. I can't do it.
Yeah,
it's hard enough for me to listen to it.
Yeah.
I can say that because my pastor doesn't listen to this podcast. So his wife does. She can laugh at it.
But yeah, I think rituals kind of pervade every area of life to a certain degree, whether they're religious or not, and they can be really useful or kind of pointless.
So the steps we have for you to not fall into the Sunday morning ritual is get a better sleep schedule on Saturday. Get chores done, stuff that's like going to keep your mind occupied. Get all that stuff done on Saturday. Make Sunday where your chores are mainly done.
Yep.
Kind of speaking to myself, I usually put off chores till Sunday. But
yeah.
2, have some coffee, get refreshed, be awake. 3, do some yoga in the lobby. Stretching. 4, when the music's playing, just jump straight into the worship aspect of it and let your body or let your brain or your heart or whatever catch up with your body when it comes to expressing yourself. And I can stop judging those people when they walk in. And what was it? 5 was...
I mean, come up with a strategy for paying attention to the sermon.
Taking
whether
notes.
It's taking notes.
A quiz at the end.
Yeah. I mean, repeating the words that you're hearing in your head as they're said. I've heard people do that.
That's why pastors will repeat after me.
Right.
Because it helps reinforce the point, the thought.
Yeah, and there's congregations that do kind of a ritualistic reading of Scripture every week, and I think that can be nice.
When I went to CR, that's what they do. They read.
Right.
It's the same rules. It's the same 12 steps, but they read it all aloud together.
That's right.
And just reinforcing. You don't even need the book anymore. You just go. You know it. You're done. Easy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope everybody has a new year. Everybody's in a new year.
I hope everybody actually has a new year.
This is why I don't talk on Sunday mornings, by the way. I just I say stupid stuff. But I leave it in the podcast because I'm authentic.
You're real.
I'm real.
Keeping it real.
And so hope everybody has a great year, 2021. And my goal is to work out more, not judge people that raise their hands after they are just laughing at a joke, walking into the... Okay, I'm very tilted by that. I need to pray.
Man, this
pray
is like a
about
thing for you.
I keep bringing it up.
You got a list of names, don't you?
I do have
you
a
name
list.
Names.
I have some faces I can see right now as they're walking in because they're sitting in their ritualistic chair,
Don't sit in the same place. There's another ritual.
That might be
Get
one.
rid of that ritual.
Don't sit in the same
place.
spot.
Move around.
Move
you
around.
don't own that pew.
You know what?
Or
This
that seat.
week, go sit in somebody else's place. Purposely.
Change your ritual and mess up somebody else's ritual.
So then they could just be mad at you the whole time and not paying attention to anything. I can't believe.
That's right.
But all right, I hope everybody has a good week, and we will see you hopefully next week. As long as I'm good at editing, which is another New Year's resolution. So
nice. Thanks
have a
for
good
having
one,
me.
guys.